What's up, and welcome to the Week 2 recap of the Strikers Premier League or SPL. I am Austin. I'm joined here by Ham. Ham, you ready to get into some of this action?
Always going to be fun. The predictions were good last week, so I can't wait to rehash them.
Yeah, I think the big moral of Week 2 is not enough data.
Yeah.
Um, we knew that going in. We knew that a lot of what we said would be disproved, but I don't know if we knew just the extent that that would happen, and it was bad.
I think a lot of predictions we made, I was like, we're going to make a gut reaction. Probably no one was going to be wrong, but missing by as much as I did on some of them makes me feel a little silly. So, always fun.
Yeah. Well, let's go into some results. So the things that we have here, this is what we predicted last week. This is actually out of order from the way that the games played out because Colin, being an absolute bum, he didn't ask me to do this at all. But I changed the start time for all of his games to the very end of the day, so that way he on Mountain Time could get a little extra sleep, which actually ended up being clutch for him because I think he fell asleep during all the games except for his. So, but all that's to say, the order of this table here is not actually how the order of the games played out. So our first game was actually Princess and the Toads versus Donkey's Nuts, which we have up on the screen right now. Hamilton, what is your gut reaction after this game?
Uh, I'm thinking that I might be in trouble come the end of this league. This is a team of Princesses and Toads that I had way down on my leaderboards, and absolutely came out and managed to steal, I believe, both games, if not just a point. But I definitely thought I was going to walk away with three this weekend, and to walk away with anything less than that makes me concerned about our future. Kudos to Dave, though. Put together a squad that he's confident in, and they managed to get results this weekend.
Yeah, I actually had a very different takeaway, and that was, we said a lot of terrible things about Princess and the Toads
Yeah,
on last week's podcast. My takeaway was less like, obviously, I don't think this was a great result for y'all, and does lower the stocks a little bit. But my big takeaway was that this team is actually way better than I thought. And one of the big just overall things that I gleaned is that Toads and Boos, like, if you look at our statistical database, are horrible, but on the field impact is actually quite high. And there's a lot of things that we really weren't considering. One of which I think really played into this match, was the fact that you guys had like no items at any point.
definitely.
And, DK, that's not really the name of his game, is, having a high powered special that gives him a bunch of mega strikes. But I think that that creates a lot of upset potential for David's team moving forward.
Absolutely, especially against some other teams that I've like. I think we've seen now 2 weeks in a row that Eric and the what's his team name, the Dirty Turtles,
Mm-hmm.
have managed to get points by just having Bowser use all of the power ups in the world and then hitting Mega Strikes. Well, that might be a spoiler for later, but um, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how this plays out in the end. Um,
Yeah,
Happy to salvage a point, but
yeah, I'm pretty
was
sure
hoping
if
for
if
more
I if
going
I
in.
remember correctly, I think you guys win game one. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then I believe David is, as of this
David.
point here, is undefeated in the classroom, but I can't remember if that changes later. The other thing that was crazy about this week is, first week one, Luigi looked terrible and the Toads looked pretty bad, but he is, I believe, number two in goals per game across the whole league, and obviously captains is way higher than sidekicks in general. So he showed a lot more promise from the striking department, which obviously this team is going to desperately need.
Yeah, I mean they definitely both him and I think Mario too even turned it around. Both who looked really bad week one, and kind of as you hinted at the beginning of the video, just to kind of go off 1 week's worth of data is surprisingly not a good way of doing it. And so, in the end, it happens and we move forward. But we'll have more data for this week, and then we'll be able to keep going forward and hopefully be more accurate with our predictions after that.
Yeah, and this actually, looking at the board, this was our. We'll get to it later, but this wasn't even our worst prediction of the day, which is pretty sad. But that can take us into the second game of the day, which was Princess and the Toads in the doubleheader against Fredchester United, where we both picked Freddie. None of no, we had absolutely zero faith in Princess and the Toads for anything. But once again, I think both these games were played on the classroom, and Princess and the Toads just look solid. Like, it didn't feel like week one where they kind of were getting like a gimmick win. Like, in every game, they were a part of it, and I think the ties were well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. They just have looked clinical when they needed to, and I'm curious to see what next week looks like. I mean, 2 week week one we typically had 1 week 1 game of data for most of these teams, and now we've got three for most at the minimum. A couple
Mm-hmm.
still with two, a couple with 5 or 6. Um, but still impressive from Princess and the Toads. Excited to see. I would be surprised if we see a change made with that roster, but I'm curious to see what they put together for next week.
Yeah, I think they could add a little bit more value, but I don't think they will. As far as Freddie's team, they're really struggling for goals right now. And I think that's the main way that you have to beat this Princess and the Toads team is just be absolutely dominant in the goal department. And so
Yeah.
that was never going to be them. So yeah, not too much more to say about this one. I don't think this was the most exciting game of the week, but it was nice to see Princess and the Toads get more positive results.
Just to state, like Freddie's team did drop 4 goals in game one to win 4-3.
Yeah.
Um, and so like they did produce. It's just a matter of consistency, which of course, in a simulation, Freddie has a lot of control over.
Yeah.
Um, but I think his team's well rounded. I just think it's a matter of can they produce in and out overall. Like I'm not here to bash any teams this week anymore. I've learned that
No.
lesson after last week. Um, but
Well,
I think Freddie's team's got a good head on his shoulders. It's just a matter of can they get goals in the back of the net like that.
yeah. Which overall the entire league looked way more balanced. This was the weird hammer bro header goal, never
Yeah,
ever to be seen again. But the league will way more balanced, and I think that our tier list will look way more balanced than it did last week.
yeah.
Um, but that takes us into the third game, which, in my opinion, was the game of the week. I am biased, but that was me versus Adam. This was one of the only three games that I predicted correctly, where I bet on myself to get the win, and you had Adam taking the tie. Um, yeah, I don't know this. Even though like wins are so big, and I am so happy with the fact that we got a win, but squeaking this out against Adam did not feel good for me at all.
I mean, we've talked about team comps, and I think that the Hammer Bros is just very clearly an offensive team. So for you to go out there and hold them to 4 goals, I think across 2 games
Mm-hmm.
was a pretty good result. Plus, this game here on Thunder Island, I felt like everyone was off the map the entire game. The Cows were out in full force this week. Um, but um, I wouldn't once again like I wouldn't say like I would state more that a win is a win, and there's no need to be mad about a win than um, the other alternative of like, oh, we just barely beat this team. Like I feel like matchups are going to matter a lot, but also no one is by far a clear front runner, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 teams.
Yeah. Well, just the reason why is, like I said, I should not be disrespecting Adam's team because they're at the point now where that's just not possible. But we were down. It's playing on screen right now. But we were down 2-0 with 20 seconds left. And when you have a captain that can't get mega strikes or refuses to take them, like Petey, like, you are not going to win games like this in the future. So we had our one. We can take this one to the bank, but we're gonna have to figure some things out. We are still undefeated on the dump, which doesn't look good when we play there, but it does feel good. And I mean, overall, I can't complain. I was stoked. Um,
Yeah.
so I think next game, which was Flower Power FC versus Come On Mr. Monty, uh, probably biggest upset of the week, which is definitely shown by our egregious predictions. Like I hinted to earlier, the +4 for you being wrong wasn't even our biggest miss. We predicted a goal difference combined of +11. You did pull the lion's share of that for Garrett versus Jacob. But what do you think happened in this one?
Um, Honestly, I think that I underestimated um Daisy. She showed up to play this week, and then I think I was too high on Yoshi after he absolutely demolished me week one. He did not seem to have nearly as many um power sorry, mega strikes in this week. And I think that goes back to our earlier conversation about the triple toad team, about teams that are just, when I played against Yoshi, it was a very hit heavy game. We talked about it even during the stream. And so for this game to be less hits, it didn't allow Yoshi to take as much advantage of his power ups and get as many mega strikes, which is where I think most of those goals were coming from. So curious to see how teams react. There's a lot less mega strikes this week. Um, and so I think teams will start looking at sidekicks that are scoring goals, but also sidekicks that are creating goals, which are both going to be key stats in my mind to be looking at
Yeah, I want to say like in week one we probably had like over 20 Mega Strike goals, and in week
easily.
two I don't think we had more than five across all the games. The one thing that I thought was really interesting about this is like you talked about like Yoshi just getting like so many egg rolls and getting such insane value. One thing that like I was not considering is sidekick impact and captain impact against like the other captain specials. So I don't know if we'll get to see it here on screen, but there were a couple times where Yoshi got his egg roll. But Garrett's team composition has three speed players, and Yoshi actually struggled to find all four players
Yeah.
in the amount of time, which was never a problem against your squad.
No.
Never even a remote difficulty. So I think it just goes to show that like matchup dependency, well, the importance of matchups is huge. And there will definitely be some rock paper scissors going on. And then also too that just having your captain being a mega strike weapon is not an automatic win, which is a massive relief, I think, for both the two people sitting in this call and a lot of other
Yeah.
managers.
Yeah. Here's
Um,
an example of the egg roll. Oh,
sorry,
all good.
and it's gone.
Yep.
Which I'm pretty sure that was exactly going to prove the point that I made.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like this was a pretty underrated game of the week. We had Danny versus Shell. We both predicted a tie. We'll have to check the goal difference afterwards to see if either of us hit this harder than the other. But this was a definite slog. It was really hard to tell the difference between the two teams. Was struggling with that the entire game. Also, Shell has a hack because Red Dry Bones looks just like a Mario running around out there with his red head. But other than that, I don't remember too much.
This game, if you want to talk about game of the week, it was most definitely not this game in my mind. There's not a lot to write home about from this one, other than I want to say someone got the ball, dribbled into lava, and then stayed in the lava. Oh, and I think Peach glitched here,
Yeah,
which was
that's
interesting.
this is what I was looking for. This was definitely the highlight of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Elite highlight.
yeah, but there definitely were good moments. I think that game two came down to the very final seconds. Danny almost had his my team pulled off a 7 second drill. I think Danny's team almost pulled off a well, my team pulled off like a 20 second drill. Danny's team pulled off almost pulled off a 7 second drill. They get the goal here, and then I think they had even one more chance before it ended. So there definitely were moments of excitement, but this just right now are two very middle of the table teams grinding out a tie, which is not really too much to write home about.
Nope. But important for both of them. Point on the board.
Yeah. Next game we had Shell coming in with the doubleheader against Grant, with Team Lemons and Bowser Jr. I think it's gonna be very interesting when we do our tier list, kind of talking about the prospects for Grant. But I mean, I think he had pretty much the exact week that he needed to. They ended up winning this game against Shell, which we both predicted. And then we'll get to his next game later on, but he got, pretty much the maximum possible amount of points that you could get given the fixtures that he had.
Yeah. Um, just a solid performance from him. I think Bowser Jr. still continued to use his power really well, and I think he scored 4 goals across both matches, which is a recipe for success. I haven't seen a lot of games go above 5, so I think getting to 4 is a good number to be able to get to.
Yeah. And they continue to be one of the top scoring teams all around. Bowser Jr. this week actually had a slow week. He's still number 3 in goals, but he is a far shout away from Wario. But I believe that they are number 2 in goals by a pretty good margin, and I think at least one of these games they win by a lot. But no real surprises there. Both of us picked Bowser Jr. to win, and Shell getting that tie against Danny was proven even bigger because uh, just it's the mid table is going to be really tight.
Yeah.
Get like fifth through 10th. Honestly, I anticipate being very very close. So every point matters. Then obviously for Grant, getting 3 is I don't know how many wins you're going to have to get to be top 4, but I don't think it's going to be that many.
Yeah, true wins is going to be, or series wins is going to be few in my mind. I think you could get away with maybe even just one and make it into the top 6. Top 4 is a different question, but um, I I think it'll be interesting to see how they all play out in the end. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just refusing to get too high or too low on any team this week, and the idea of
Yeah.
last week I got burned by that.
Tempered takes all around. Um, the last 2 games of the week, we were absolutely treated. Um,
Absolutely.
we had Colin versus Grant. So Lemons versus the Warriors. Uh, I picked Colin at +2. You correctly picked the tie at -3. And this game was a certified banger. It was kind of like watching 2 heavyweights go at it. And then
Yeah.
you compare the level of play to that Danny Shell game earlier, and it honestly just looks like a different strikers.
Yeah. But it's no guarantee, just to continue to limit my takes. It's no guarantee that these teams will continue to beat teams like David or the Hammer Bro team that might just play a different style of like. I feel like a lot of sidekick comps looked pretty similar this week.
Yeah.
And so I would be curious to see how if they end up with a different matchup against a team that maybe is non-traditional, how they would play and what the result would be.
Yeah, the one prediction that we did absolutely hit was most transferred in was dry bones. And like you're saying, a lot of teams just added a dry bones for either their balance player or one of their offensive speed players. So we saw outside of our interestingly enough, we have no duplicate teams. We only have triplicate teams. So outside of our triplicate teams, everyone had a dry bones. So it led to a lot of homogenous gameplay. But these 2 teams were incredibly even matched, and I do think that they are neither of them are Mega Strike dependent. They can get them. So
Yeah.
I do think that these are right now looking like the 2 best teams. There are some other teams that could rise up, but this one was a banger. You actually correctly pointed out at the very end here. After the clock expires, Birdo actually puts it in. So if the game was longer by just about like 3 seconds right here, Birdo actually scores as it fades away. So if just a couple more seconds and it could have even gone to overtime and Colin could have won that.
Yeah.
Um, but last game of the week, I think was one that people were very interested in because we kind of got to see the Boo team be humbled a little bit.
Yes.
Going in, I predicted a tie and you predicted Colin +5. What gave you that confidence going into this?
Honestly, it was the sidekicks. I felt like the triple boo was not going to produce results. I was really low on boo.
Hmm.
Um, and I just I knew that Wario was producing results, Bowser was producing results, but I figured that Colin's sidekicks would be more apparent in this game. But um, in his defense, it was not +5. I think it finished +2.
Hmm.
Um, but it was definitely closer than I thought it would be. But still, Colin looked the better team, and I think that's also a statement of, while the sidekicks aren't the end all be all, they do matter.
Hmm.
Um, and so we'll be curious to see if Eric makes a change to upgrade from Triple Boo. I have a strange feeling that we won't see a change, but there is nothing wrong with that. That's the beauty of your team making. One week it might work, one week it might not.
One thing that is very interesting, and I do think that, there is a good chance that if Eric had better sidekicks, he would have won. But week one, Eric only played 2 games. He's had one series both weeks. Week one, Bowser scored 8 goals. The Boos scored 0. Um, this week, the Boos actually outscored Bowser. Bowser only scored 1 goal across these 2 games, 0 mega strikes, and I think the Boos scored 2, maybe 3. So that was very shocking and, at least slightly affirming for the Boos. But we talked about it last time. Eric's team could be made better very easily just by a better composition, but I doubt that'll happen. And, even with this suboptimal team, he's still able to compete with the best, which Colin does look like the best.
I will add, because I just saw it on the stream, that Bowser did have a 6 goal Mega Strike completely shut out, which would drastically swing that game if even just one or two of those went in. Um, so the other reminder that Mega Strikes are still important, and if your captain is shooting them, you are never out of the game. So I still think Bowser is a top tier captain. It's just a matter of the luck, I would say, of his shooting abilities.
Yeah, which luck was not on the side of captains. Um,
No,
there were fewer mega strikes in general attempted. Um, but of the ones attempted, it was pretty pitiful. I don't think any doubles or triples or anything were scored. I think they were all 1 goals. And like we talked about earlier, there was no more than 5. I want to say it was even less than that, like no more than like 3 or 4, which was pretty crazy to see.
yeah,
Um, so taking a look at our bonus pick Preds, uh, most added sidekick. I'm running the numbers here. So in week one, there were a total of 6 dry bones across the league. Week two, there were 10. So I don't think I have to check the stats on any of the other sidekicks to say that that was correct. um,
yeah,
and it was really funny across the whole weekend. One of the stats we track is game plus minus, and dry bones didn't move at all because every game was just dry bones against dry bones. So add one to the win column, add one to the loss column, which was pretty boring to track, but it definitely was the week of dry bones for good reason.
yeah. I mean, I think he alone has continued to prove that he deserves to be rostered on every team. I wouldn't be too surprised if in 2 weeks we see a triple dry bones team,
Mm-hmm.
just to see what that would look like. I don't know if anyone will actually go for it, but would be curious to see how they would play. Um, Surprised, not terribly surprised that we don't have anyone who started with that, but I could see it happening, especially if one of our triple teams decides to move off of their current triple team.
Yeah, which I know Adam has put some stuff in the Discord saying about changes that need to be made, but I don't know if the other two will. I don't think David has much incentive to, and I don't know if Eric. I think Eric does have incentive to, but probably won't. Um,
I would agree.
so for most dropped, uh, we had come to the agreement of Boo. Boo actually had 6 picks in week one and 6 picks in week two. So I am too lazy to figure out whether or not that meant no one dropped Boo, but I think at least one person dropped Boo and then someone else added Boo. So Boo actually remained stable. Um, I think that the player whose stocks dropped the most was probably Koopa. Because in week one, there were three Koopas, which, isn't great representation, but isn't horrible. And going into week two, there was a single Koopa on Shell's team. And Koopa's stats are getting progressively more and more heinous. So I don't know where that course correction is going to go. How do you feel about balanced sidekicks right now, Koopa and Shy Guy?
I I think I dropped my Shy Guy this week. I'm trying to make sure that that's correct. No, I didn't. I dropped the Boo, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. But I am struggling with the balanced sidekicks because I feel like the speed sidekicks give a higher upside right now than the balanced sidekicks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I once again won't really bash anybody for anything right now. Um, I I I could see Shy Guys going this week. There's a couple still out there. There's only one Koopa, I think you said, to get rid of. I think that we're gonna see the end of the balanced sidekicks. I think people are gonna try and get more specialized. Um,
Do you want to go ahead
which will
and
be
just do the sidekick tier list kind of while we're talking about it?
sure.
I feel like we've already cracked open the can. Um, might as well hop into it. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was that
No,
just
you're
popped in my
good.
mind.
Do you want to just work through what we've got right now and see if we want to keep or move?
Yeah, you want to start at the top and go down, or start at the bottom and go up?
I think bottom and go up would be more fun.
Okay.
Mostly because
Um,
I'm higher on Toad this week after Dave.
yeah, I also am higher on Boo. Um, I don't think it's a perfect stat, but it is the closest thing we have to a stat that honors like anything but goals. Uh,
Yeah.
Game plus minus, both Toad and Boo um, are +6 and +8. Some of that is definitely swayed by the triplicate teams that are out there running it.
Yep.
Um, but
But
still, like that can't be ignored.
nope, definitely not. I think now the flip side of that in my mind is that I don't know that a triplicate of them is truly a dominant force.
Agreed.
Um, and so I think that they do have a ceiling. I don't think their floor is D and F though, like I initially thought it was.
Can
Um,
I do one thing real quick just to get
yeah,
your opinion on? Can I make one change? This is no disrespect to Birdo, but I also just feel like this is kind of how things are.
just as in there's a huge gap between dry bones and the next tier.
Yeah, that's not like Birdo can still go all the way up there, but I feel like there has to be a full gap between Dry Bones and anyone else.
I would agree. Um, if we're going to leave that gap, I think I would put Toad and Boo, both of them, in C tier.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that like especially David's team, if he got to play against Eric, I would be curious to see how that game went when Eric didn't have any power ups. Um, and so, and I also think they both create a lot more than we really give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is what it is, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But I think that they are no longer by far the worst sidekicks for sure.
Do you think that Koopa belongs in the same tier with those three?
I don't. That's where I was going next.
Okay. Do you think that Shy Guy belongs in the same tier as those two?
I think Shy Guy is down with Koopa. I think I'm limiting my takes, but I do think that the balanced sidekicks are gonna be at the bottom of my tier list this week.
So,
Uh,
what's different between Koopa and Shy Guy? I don't know, but Shy Guys are scoring much more. Um, Shy Guy has zero point 0.5 goals per game. Koopa has 0.08. Koopa scores even less than Boo and Toad.
That's crazy stats.
That is
Um,
isn't that a crazy stat? And that's averaged. That's not,
yeah,
that's not just purely reflective out of Koopa having less instances of playing. Yes, that means there's less data that could correct for. But Shy Guy is scoring over 5 times as much as Koopa.
interesting. I
So
don't really want to throw Koopa down in F to move Shy Guy down, but
what if we dragged Shy Guy just in the back of
there,
C?
I was gonna, yes, I was already going there. Um, or I guess I was trying to get him down to D. That's my bad. But I will state that I do think there's a gap between Shy Guy and Koopa. Um, I'm curious who has Koopa this still on their roster right
It's
now.
just Shell.
Just Shell. I'm curious to see if Shell drops the shell. Um, but we'll see how it plays out. Um,
The one
but
thing that
I
Koopa does have going for him is he has 0.17 skill shot goal participation per game, which, once again is not a lot, but it's actually number 2 behind Dry Bones. So he
interesting.
does have a little bit more goal participation in terms of the assist column because that's the only real assist that I care to track because I think that is important just because it shows how often they're pulling out their skill shot.
Yeah,
But I still think that number is too low to account for the fact that he is just not scoring goals.
yeah. I It's hard. This isn't a defensive league in my mind. Like
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of 1-0 games. And so to have someone on your team that's not scoring, I think is he's got to sit down there and D. Now, if Shell keeps him and he drops a hat trick in a single game next week, I'll eat my words again. But curious to see if he's even on a team coming into this week.
Yeah. I think I have to open up this conversation and I'm curious to get your opinion on Hammer Bro. Um, because like I said, not the most perfect stat, but game plus minus, you know, there's no arguments about Hammer Bro's ability to score. He's number 2 in goals per game behind Dry Bones. So, for what you're
Yep.
drafting, he is doing that. But his game plus minus is minus 16.
Holy
And
crap.
I already know what you're gonna say. How much of that is Adam? Um, who in his individual games is 1-5. So if you multiply that by 3, that's 3 wins, 15 losses. So if
For
you
a
take
minus 12.
yeah, so if you add 12 to minus 16, that's still
Still mine?
minus 4, which is only better than Koopa. And is significantly worse than both Birdo and Monty. So I'm kind of trying to figure out how much of it like is the eye test of Hammer Bro versus like how much actual value is he bringing to a team.
I think that will depend on your team. I
Mm-hmm.
think if you need someone to score, Hammer Bro is worth bringing on your team.
Mm-hmm.
But if your captain is scoring and your other sidekicks are scoring, and you don't necessarily need to rely on Hammer Bro to put goals in the back of the net, then maybe you don't want him on your team with that plus minus. He's not going to help the other people score. He is there to be your goal scorer. And so I understand the plus minus is most likely because his defensive stats are bad. And he's not. I don't know. He's shooting in what? Do you know?
What'd you say?
What are his buff stats? Shooting and
Passing. He's the only
passing.
sidekick that's shooting and passing.
Interesting.
So he has the Wario Bowser Jr. build. The question is that a liability because he can't play striker because that position is already filled by the captain? Which, like
And
I said, this is more of questions to pose. I'm not against him being in B just because I do think that, like we see him scoring constantly. Um he, is second in goals for, and it's not even close. But he also has played way more games and has lost way more games than anyone else.
Yeah, I won't argue that. I think that I might compare it to you wouldn't put LeBron in B because he can't play defense, even if his teams are bad. Um, so,
Which is a heinous
well,
comparison because he can. Hammer Bro is definitely the Steph Curry of the SPL, but point taken.
I I think that honestly, the rest of the rankings I'm very content with. The only thing I might do is I think I might be higher on Berto significantly than Monty and Hammer Guy.
Mm-hmm.
Berto seems to be fine in the back of the net and have an impact, and so I might do exactly what you're doing of just drag everyone down, just so that way it remains that gap between Dry Bones and Berto, because I don't think it was talked about enough, but Dry Bones' impact on the games is absolutely astronomical. Um, I think this is what brought us to this conversation, but I think I myself am contemplating if it's worth it, but I would not be surprised if others are as well, going to the triple Dry Bones just to see what happens. Because you can always, if you start that process now, you could get out of it by the time playoffs roll around. But I don't think you want to start that process in playoffs.
Yeah, I think
So
that I mean you obviously want to you want to have your team in your final form in playoffs, and
yeah,
someone is going to have to make a very long term experiment towards filling their team with dry bones.
yeah. So
Um, one thing to talk about Birdo, not to rely too much on stats, but one thing that's interesting about her is Collins Birdo is now the only Birdo in the entire league. Um, I believe there were only
yeah,
two in week one. The other one was Shed, so it's just the one Birdo. So she has the least amount of games played, but she is 8-2 with the second highest goals per game. So I think I don't know how much of like her thing, like her stats are definitely padded by the fact that she's just on Colin's team, and
absolutely.
that's the only team she plays for now. But I think she has been good when she has played. So I think this is fair. I'm actually pretty happy with this. Given the information that we have, which could obviously change.
No, we have plenty this time around. We have twice as much information. We should be plenty accurate.
Yeah,
Uh,
it will be interesting if at some point. I mean, like I said, there's only one Koopa left in the league. Um, if
there's
Shell
one
does
Birdo as
drop
well.
him, yeah, but I don't think Colin's making any changes. But it's
Fair.
more likely that Shell drops his Koopa than the Birdo gets axed. There's only two Shy Guys. Uh, I think the likelihood that they both get axed is pretty low, but there could be a point where Koopa is just dropped entirely and has no chance to redeem himself. So
Possible,
I feel like
but
people are
I
gonna move towards like duplicates and triplicates beyond like
yeah.
re-adding someone that they already cut.
It's it's also tough because it's hard to justify like if Koopa gets cut, it'd be very tough to justify adding him in the future on the grounds like what play does he have to justify getting added back? Um, I think it would be very tough in my mind to add someone that you're not seeing play every week.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think you'd have to be
so
in a desperate situation.
yeah,
But I'm pretty happy with this. I mean, I don't remember entirely what this what it looked like before this, but I think we made a lot of changes, um, which just goes along with the whole theme of just having more data.
yeah.
Okay.
Who'd have thought?
Next segment's probably going to be a little bit sadder because I think we're also going to have to make a lot of changes to our captain's tier list. Um, I don't think this looks good.
No, I think
I
you could just reset it.
I also don't know where to start. You're saying you want us to just scrap it all and just go
Yeah.
from scratch? All right.
Yeah.
Is it possible to remove them? Okay. That's so inefficient. Okay. So
Sorry.
starting no, you're good. Starting from scratch. Oh shit.
What happens if you just hit the refresh button? Nothing good.
um Wait. Okay, we're gonna
We're just gonna run with
we're
this.
gonna we're gonna
Sounds good.
we're gonna start from this, which I think we're gonna have a lot of changes to make from this. I think we've made our job infinitely more difficult, unfortunately. Let me put everyone in D, which
Uh, and just to clarify, we are rating teams, not individual captains.
yeah, which is definitely what this list was.
Hmm.
Okay,
Um,
well, you just want to go in this randomized order.
sure.
Okay.
Wario's got to be an S.
Mm-hmm.
Undefeated through series. Power, Mega Strike potential is off the charts. Putting in goals, just very simply yes. And I think he might stand alone in S right now. Just
I That was gonna be my take. So we'll, that'll we can just set that agreement now that going forward, I don't think there's gonna be anyone in S. He has 10 points in 4 games. Next highest is 6, also in 4 games. So Grant would have to get 2 full wins, and Colin would have to get 2 ties or a loss and a tie for him to even be caught. And Grant has the same amount of games played. It's not going to happen unless something really weird breaks in the simulation. Colin will be the number 1 team in the league.
or Wario just suddenly reverts because there's a chance that Wario just starts being bad, and you know that's a possibility. We'll see.
I mean, everything's a possibility.
Austin did sell out this team to Big Tobacco. Or sorry, the league out to Big Tobacco, so it might start getting rigged. We'll see.
Wario is just chain smoking after every goal, just holding up a pack of Marlboro to the camera. Oh man, this is tough. I think that we go in order from top to bottom, like in terms of
I'm
like
fine with
like
that.
like like picking players, because I have no idea where to put Mario. I think that's gonna have to be relative to other people.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I'm putting Bowser Jr. up in A. Uses his ability well, has gotten results. Played a tough team this week and didn't get a result, which is why he's an A. But I think he still deserves to be there.
yeah, and if he had had better results in week 1, he would also be an S. Because I mean,
Yeah,
his job this week was to tie Wario, and he did that, which
yeah,
no one else has been able to do. But he also just tied against, I believe it was the Hammer Bro team.
yeah.
Um, and I don't remember who else he played, but he needed to win at least one of those to, if he was at like 8 points, I think you could make the argument for him being an S as well. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, like if you look at the standings, it's Wario needs to be alone.
The next one I want to go at really pains me to still put him there, but Bowser in my mind I think is still an A. Um,
Yeah,
I, I I think the triple boost still could be improved, but I don't think that I could ever see Bowser dipping below an A. Definitely not dipping below a B the entire season. Um, it's just tough to when he's got that much potential and at any point I feel like could get the ability to score a mega strike and possibly add 6 goals to the scoreboard. That's just where we're at. It's, you can't ever be out of a game.
and how much can you realistically penalize him for losing to Wario?
Yeah,
I mean, there definitely should be some tax on that, and that tax is that he's not an S, but like everyone's pretty much lost to Wario, so A's
yeah.
good. He's only played 2 series, so he still has a lot of potential to catch up in the standings, and he probably will.
I
Um,
don't know that I want to put anyone else in A.
I think that the next person that we probably need to talk about is Yoshi.
I would agree. But I think Yoshi's in B in my mind. I think this week just kind of proved that his Mega Strike potential, if it's not getting met, the team's not necessarily scoring enough to guarantee them wins. Um, and so I think that I think I'm leaving him in B. Is Jacob 0-0-2?
No, he's 1 win, 1 tie.
Okay.
So
1-0-1.
he sits on he's still technically undefeated.
Yeah.
Um,
Sits in fifth with 4 points.
yeah. I we can put him in B. I think my thought process is that once we put more people in B, I have a feeling that we're going to look at Yoshi matching up against them, and it's going to be hard pressed for me not to pick Yoshi in almost every one of those matchups, which makes me want to put him in A. But let's put him there for now. And I also do think that he could go toe to toe with both the Bowsers. Um, but let's stick there for now.
Okay.
Um, and then we can reevaluate. Um, everyone else kind of sucks, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Just leave it like this. Uh,
low key.
I kind of want to, if I'm being honest.
I
Like
don't think.
we have a very clear front four, and everyone else is just week to week, matchup dependent. Um, I'm trying
The,
to see, like, I'm so low on my own team, which is might be causing some of this. But the only two, I don't remember who's Diddy Kong's team.
it's all Hammer Bros. So
Okay, then
that's not good. I mean, he has 1 point in 4 games.
yeah.
We can leave everyone in D. I'm cool with that, but we should organize within this tier,
Okay.
or else we've just completely
Um.
copped out. But that
Yeah.
also too, like, you know. So I think Diddy's got to go to the bottom just because of results. Um,
Yeah.
I also think Daisy probably has to be pretty low because of results.
I'm looking at the table. 3 games played, 1 point, -8 goal differential for Daisy. Now, I think she got cooked by Bowser in week one. Probably literally. But
Yeah, she's had she like strength of schedule for Daisy has been the worst. I believe that she has played Wario, Bowser, and Yoshi.
I'd
So,
like to put Waluigi where he is. And my reasoning for that is Freddy's pretty high on the table, but he's
mm-hmm,
only got 8 goals for,
mm-hmm.
which is the lowest in the league. To put it in comparison, Warriors FC has 33 goals for. So we're talking a 4x factor there. So I think that Freddie's team has been locked down on defense, only -1 goal differential, but that's gonna give eventually. Um, if he's not scoring goals, it's gonna be bad.
Mm-hmm. I no, I'm with you there. And that's sad to see. You know, 3 speed captains at the bottom, but that's also kind of how it has to be. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. N- It's gonna read as biased, but I don't. I just think based off where I stand in the table, I think
Yeah, I'm
that's
not upset with
fair.
that.
Um, just because like I said, but the eye test, I do not have the same results, like the same caliber as Jacob's team, but we do have the same amount of points. So,
Yeah.
um,
I want to leave my team exactly where it is. We have 10 goals through 2 games, which is not enough. Um, and we looked bad this week against the team I chatted shit about. Jamie Vardy taught me better. Um,
it feels
but
wrong having you behind the Mario Bros. I'm not gonna lie. But I'll let you have the final verdict there. Mario or Luigi, same exact clones, very different teams. What do we think?
I'm gonna put Luigi over Mario, and I'm a live to regret that decision. But I was so low on him last week that I've got to respect it this week. Um, in the sense that I don't think he beats traditional teams, but I think he might squeak out results against our four in the top just because it's no items. And like I would love to see the Luigi Bowser matchup next week, and I don't think we get it. But I would love to see it just to see how it all plays out. Because I think that the triple toad, while is not an effective strategy most of the time, has its moments and will have its days.
Fair play. I do want to leave them behind Peach just because that's as high as I want to put Princess and the Toads. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that's fair. Danny's team, low key, like they've been grinding out results. Um, I think that they choked in week one and could have had a win. Right now, they're sitting at 2 games played, 2 points, with a +3 goal differential. So that actually is the third best goal differential across the whole table,
Yeah.
despite being pretty far down the board. But they've also only played 2 games. So I'm not mad at this. I kind of want to send a screenshot in the chat because I know a lot of people won't actually listen to this, but I think it'd be kind of funny for people to see this. Um, but I only think we would have gotten here by the fact that we had to restart the tier list from scratch and we just accidentally had everyone in D. But I'm actually very happy with this.
I'm excited to come back to it next week and then realize what we've done terribly wrong with this one and the sidekick one, and soon to be the score prediction one. Um, I'm because I just am learning that until we have significantly more data, we will never be able to accurately predict, in my mind.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
so
have zero urge to pick between these bottom 8 teams.
yes,
I think that we can go ahead. Let's go ahead and pull up the schedule for next week. But I we did not pick enough ties in week one.
no,
Which was a hard lesson learned. Um, but I think that's just because those bottom teams, it is so hard to discern anything between them. So let's go ahead and get into Preds. So we're kicking off week 3 with middle of the table fight of David versus Shell. What are you doing?
you know, every part of me is screaming. We did horrible on predictions last week. Predict some ties, low score differentials. And then I see this game and I want to go David +3. Um, and just completely go away from that. But I'm just kind of curious to see what the Toads can produce. Um, I don't think that I will be right, but I'd like to back David here, and I think David's going to be an interesting team. I think Shell's team is well made. The captains being the same will be weird, but that's what I got.
I'm hoping for a lot of large goals here. A lot of big goals from the big boys. But it's going to be a tie. Um, I think there'll be 0 um, low scoring games. Uh, let's move on to a very important game for not your normal reasons. These are the bottom 2 teams. So if either one of them could get a win, this is the week, and they both desperately need a win. Do you have a pick here?
Is the Flying Dutchman, is that the triple hammer, bro?
That is.
Okay. Then I think I'm gonna go tie, and I'm gonna go -1. So Garrett ends up with a better goal differential.
Gotcha. I don't think mm, Adam is definitely going to make a change. Um, I'll have to talk to him because I don't know if he knows that he can only make one change.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if Garrett's going to make a change. I feel like Garrett had enough positives where we're probably going to see him run the same roster. Uh, yeah,
Do you think a double hammer bro is better than a triple hammer bro? Is
I
my
do
question.
100%. I think if he had
Okay.
double Hammer Bro with a dry bones in the back, I think that's actually a very good team with Diddy up front.
Okay.
So if that is the one change that he makes, I think that that's actually like that bumps him up way up in my list. But he could end up adding in a Koopa. Um, and then I don't think that team's very good at all. So I'm gonna go tie. Uh, I think Adam's team scores more, so I'll go, +1. I'm gonna try and not be boring in my predictions, but the biggest lesson I've learned is that everything ends in a tie, and the series are much closer than we anticipated last week. Because last week we only predicted like 4 or 5 ties, and
Yeah.
that was not good.
Yeah.
Um, Garrett versus Ham.
Another.
I know your stocks are low on yourself. How low are they?
It's another bottom of the table matchup is what I was putting together.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't know how low they are if I'm being honest. I'm gonna back. I'm gonna go with everything's ending in a tie, so I'm gonna call tie. But I'm gonna go tie -2. I think I outscore him, which is an insane thing to take in my as I stare at the board because he's actually outscored me through the season. Oh, but he's got an extra game. Never
Yeah.
mind. I like this. I like this a lot.
Tie -2. So you think that you win one game by 3 and then he wins one by 1, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, think I'm gonna have to go with a tie.
Yeah.
This week broke me because I think at least 5, if not was it 5 or 6 of the games were ties. Let me try and figure that out. Do you know off the top of your head by chance? Oh wait, it's up here. Um, okay, 5 of 8. Um, and I do think all of these games are balanced.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 0 again. Um, you versus Danny. What are you thinking?
This is gonna be one of the lamest prediction sheets in a long time. Tie 0.
Oh God, who has Danny played? He played Shell and he played David. He hasn't played a single power captain. Your team is pretty much just my team. I'm going you +2.
Oh
That's
baby.
you got to bet on yourself. Um, next game is our first game. I think that involves anyone in the top 4,
Yeah.
any of our power teams. And it's 2 of them. Which is
Is
not a,
Grant Lemons?
Grant's Lemons. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
you
it's
got
number 1 versus number 2. No, my apologies. My apologies. Was looking at Warriors and thinking it was Dirty Turtles.
yeah. It's like number 3, number 2 versus like number 5, but Eric's
Yeah.
only played 2 games and one of them was against Colin. What are you taking here?
I'm I'm gonna try and punish Eric here, and I'm gonna go Grant +2.
That's not a bad shout because Grant has a very similar team to Colin. So in theory, if the simulation holds true at all, that should play out. But I'm gonna go a tie. This is great stuff.
Yeah.
+1. Okay. Um, Eric versus Freddie. I'm gonna go ahead and put mine in. I'm taking Eric. I'll go. I'll try and be a little bit spicy. I'll go +3. What do you think here?
I think you're pretty close. I'm looking at goals for right now. Freddie through 2 games has 8 goals for. The Dirty Turtles have 12 through 2 games, which is a difference of 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say Eric. I think it's gonna be +4 again. I'm gonna stick. I'm gonna. We're both gonna stake something in this one, and then Freddie's gonna either win this game or pull out a draw, and we're both gonna be like, "Yep, okay, that's what we get for big predictions."
Yeah, that's whenever we went big last week, we got absolutely punished.
Except for
Um,
Grant,
what'd you say?
we got Grant.
Yeah, we did. I don't know what the goal
I don't
difference
think
was
the
there.
goal differential was that, but that's not
um,
important.
Fred versus me. Gotta back the boys. We're gonna win on the dump. I don't like what I see for my team, but they haven't lost yet, so I'm going with myself.
I'm gonna go tie +2. No, +1 to Austin.
Yeah. Um. Well, the one nice thing about Colin getting moved to Mountain Time is that means that pretty much every week it feels like we end on a banger.
Yeah,
And this is a huge match, I think, for Jacob.
yeah.
Um, I think that if he wants to be in the top four, and move up that tier list, which he's very capable of, he has to show more than he did last week. What do you think's going to happen here?
I'm gonna go, and I think this is a bold prediction because I think Colin's the easy one. I'm gonna go tie. Um, the difference in games played and looking at the goals for in the table is so despairing, in the sense that like Colin's got 33 goals and Jacob has 12. Um, I'm gonna go tie, and
In
I'm gonna
twice the games, in
yeah,
twice the amount of games.
yeah. I'm gonna go tie, and I'm gonna go Colin +1.
Um, I also am gonna go a tie. I think that Jacob will bounce back, and I think there's a good chance that he'll end up making a roster change that could improve things. I haven't looked at his team to know what that might be, um, but um, I think he will. So we have both gone 5 of 8 in ties.
And that's not
Um,
the end of the world, since we went 5 of 8 in ties last week.
yeah, and in week one was 4 of 8 in games. But if you compare that, last week I picked 6 winners. You picked 5 winners. So you can see what this past week has done to us.
It's a
Um,
fickle game
yeah.
when you have no control.
We have learned that the league is more balanced than we thought, and that it is much harder to win than we thought.
Yeah,
Any other takeaways?
absolutely.
Because I think that's all I really have.
Do you want to do sidekick predictions? I don't feel like it's as easy as last week, so I don't really know that I want to. Um,
Yeah, I don't really have any thoughts on that. I do think
yeah.
most pick stage will be interesting. Um,
Um,
so you this was your call, which was correct. In the sense that it did go from Thunder Island to Vanilla. You just picked the wrong Vanilla map.
I think people didn't know that the Vice was vanilla.
Yeah, I
Um,
I, I don't know if they still know, so I don't think that'll be correct.
yeah.
Um,
I
hmm.
mean, I'm inclined to go to the classroom if I'm being honest.
You
People
think
know
people?
it's vanilla, and I think people are kind of tired of the cows taking all of their team off the map.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good shout. I think I'm gonna go Lava Pit just because I think there's a very good chance that there's at least one map that has not touched the entire season. I don't know what it'll be yet, but I think there's a good chance. Um, I think that people who win have very little incentive to change anything. Um, I do think there are some people who will probably make less and less changes as the season goes on.
Yeah.
So I think people who are gonna make changes have seen the lava pit and might like what they see and opt for that. Um, yeah, I really hope that people are tired of Thunder Island because I know I am.
I, as someone who frequented it again last week, will state that I think I'm going back there this week again. I'm just here for the chaos. Um,
Oh
I
my
don't
god.
have so I don't have a ability that knocks people off the map, and so I think having a fish that knocks people off the map might be to my captain's benefit. Um, we'll see though.
That's it's not a bad take. Does DK's Thunder Smash in theory knock people off the map?
Honestly, I don't feel like I've seen it enough to really know what it does. So,
I'm pretty sure it would if he got it and used it. Um, but last week he just never got it. So,
yeah.
um, all right. Well, I think that pretty much puts a wrap on week 2. Um, excited for some of these games in week 3. I am getting kind of concerned by the fact that I feel like a lot of our top 4 has played against each other in the first 3 weeks just by coincidence.
Yeah.
Cuz we had 2 really good games last week and we had 2 really good games this week. So I really feel like by the time we get to like week 5 and 6, they're going to be playing against other teams and just destroying them. But I'm here for it while it lasts.
I also think like it's important to remember it's a 8 week season. So we're almost after this week we'll be 1 week away from being halfway through.
Mhm.
And we're well the top four are playing for the top four. The rest of us, the remaining eight, it's a very competitive game week in week 8 to see who's gonna manage to get into top that 5 through 8 slot. And with everyone playing 2 games, it's gonna be very interesting to see like you play games 1 and 2. Your season could be done after the first 2 weeks in theory.
Mhm.
Sorry, after the first 2 games in theory. Or you might be sitting in the 5 spot after your first 2 games and fall all the way to 9. Which is one of the reasons I love this game week 8. Everyone has a doubleheader. Um, should be a very electric week in the end.
I think one thing that's really cool about the format that we have that isn't super intentional, is right now it's very hard to tell what the standings are. But once we get to week 6, it's going to be fully crystallized. Because by
Yeah,
the time we get to week 6, every team will have played 8 games, I believe. And then they play their final 3 to hit 11. So right now things are kind of blurry, but we don't have too long before the playoff picture actually materializes. And like you said, week 8 is going to be insane. Um, and I'm super stoked to get there because I think there's going to be a lot of narrative changes. A lot already has changed.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, just stoked for the rest of the season and just seeing how and where things change.